Hello and welcome back to our ninth topic for the school year. This topic is about after school enrichment. And really the purpose of this topic at the end of the school year is to start making plans for hopefully next school year and getting your after school enrichment ensemble kind of up and running. In this segment, we're going to be talking specifically about managing rehearsals, especially if those after school enrichment ensembles are large groups. My fourth and fifth grade course at my school is 85 students. Then you're going to want some management procedures in place. So let's talk about them. So first off is attendance. And this might seem obvious, but for any after school activity, this is really important because we want to make sure that the students are where they need to be. I did have an incident once where a student went off campus. Their parents thought they were supposed to be at chorus and they were not. Thankfully, I figured it out very quickly because I took attendance and I realized they were not there. The front office was able to locate where that student was. We found them safe and we got them where they needed to be. But this is something that really shouldn't be overlooked. It seems simple, but it's really important that we know where our students are, especially in after school setting. Okay. Like I mentioned a minute ago, I have a very large choir. I have a lot of fourth and fifth graders who are very interested in joining the chorus in my school, which is great. But it's a lot of kids all at once. So I have a couple of strategies that I have found that have been a little helpful. It's still somewhat chaotic, but we get the job done. First of all, I have been lucky enough to have an assistant for the past several years. My school and my district has often two music teachers in the same building, maybe not every day, but most days. So I schedule my chorus rehearsals on the day when I know my other music teacher will be here to help out with rehearsals. This year, my other music teacher was not able to help with rehearsals due to her own personal schedule. But as I mentioned in segment one, where I find teachers and family members who are willing to accompany me, the students for chorus, I was able to find a parapro at my school who happened to have a undergraduate degree in musical performance. So I definitely put her to the task and said, will you help me with chorus? And she said yes. So if you can get another adult in the room to help, that would be great. I also do raffle tickets and a point system. So I'll say at the beginning of the semester, we're going to start with 20 points. And while I'm leading rehearsal, the second adult will walk around and give a ticket to someone who they see who's sitting up and not talking and paying attention, doing all the right things. And she'll pass out these tickets throughout rehearsal. And throughout rehearsal, if the entire ensemble is doing a really good job listening and not talking and following my directions, I'll add points throughout rehearsal, like, oh, you guys sounded great on that, 21 points. Or, oh, thank you for standing up so quietly, 22 points. And the points translate to how many tickets I call at the end of the rehearsal. And then I call out 22 tickets, maybe 40 kids have gotten a ticket that day. And those 22 kids whose ticket I call, they get a special treat. They get to go to a treasure box, they get to go to candy, even a little Hershey's Kiss. The kids get amped for it. So it's, maybe it's a bribe, but it works. And for after school enrichment, for large groups, it has been a good system that has worked for us. And the point system works out because you have an ability to limit how many people are getting the reward, but you still get to recognize people for doing the right thing by handing out the tickets. So that has been a good strategy for you. Again, if you have other strategies for large group management, send them my way, because I think one of these days that system might not work as well as it has in the past, but so far it's been a good thing for our students. Okay, physical space. My classroom is not big enough to accommodate 85 singers. So this year I have had rehearsals in the gym. And that's been less than ideal because the acoustics in there are not great, but it's given them space where they are able to spread out. I do rehearse them in 4 rows because our risers on our stage are set up in 4 rows. So I want them to rehearse in a similar layout to what their performance will be. I also, when it gets close to the concert, I do have them rehearse on the risers, so they're used to that physical space and they may be a little closer, and there's different aspects of standing on a riser that might be a little different than standing in the gym. So think about your physical space where you can get around, the students aren't squished. If it's in your classroom, that's great. Your classroom is actually ideal because it's where all your music equipment is. One thing that was less than ideal about going to the gym was I had to put all of my course materials on a cart and drag them across the hall every week. I had to have a 20-foot extension cord to plug in my keyboard where I could have used my acoustic piano upright in my classroom. So if you can use your classroom, it's great, but don't feel like you have to use your classroom if it really is not a safe space for that many students for an after school ensemble. So for materials management, I purchase a class set of octavos and keep them in a filing cabinet and have them on hand. I don't just purchase one copy of a piece of music and then make copies because that violates copyright law. But since we have limited time in a once a week rehearsal for 1 hour, I don't feel like I have time to teach my students properly how to read music from an octavo. I mean, we talk about melody and reading music in our music class, but not necessarily from an octavo where there's a lot going on and we're not sight reading the whole song. So for the purposes of my course rehearsal, I usually do lyric sheets and I'll type out the lyrics to the song and then make the copies for the students. I do request that my students bring some sort of folder, whether that's their school folder that they already have, where they can keep those lyric sheets handy and then bring them out week after week so I'm not having to make a million copies. I tell my students I love trees and I don't want to kill trees, so help me in that effort and make sure you keep track of your materials. I'll let students borrow a piece of the lyric sheet for the duration of rehearsal and then turn it in if they don't have a folder, but that can get kind of tricky logistically of like passing out and passing back in. So that's kind of up to you how you handle it. That's what's worked for us in the past where I've had the students have a folder for their lyric sheets. So kind of something to consider. If you have more time or you see your after school ensemble more often, maybe you do consider doing octavos. That's kind of a personal decision. I do have a seating arrangement, like I mentioned a moment ago. I do have my students rehearse in 4 rows so that when we translate to the risers, it's not a big transition for them. I try to let them be friends because it's an after school ensemble and they're there of their own volition in their own time. And so I want it to be friendly and fun for them. And I want them to sit with their friends. But sometimes I do have to address those behavior problems because at the end of the day, we've got work to do and we've got a performance to put on and we've got music to learn. And we can't just be goofing off with our best friend the whole time. So I try to keep it consistent week to week. I ask the students to stay consistent week to week of where they're sitting and who they're sitting next to. And that has worked out really well for us rather than making it kind of a free-for-all, sitting wherever you want, sitting by whomever you want. Time management for a rehearsal. So this could be a whole topic on its own. And this is a really big topic. I know in like secondary music when they're organizing and structuring their class and how to do warm-ups and how to do rehearsal and full group versus small group and stuff like that. I do take time after attendance to do a very quick warm-up. We experiment with, articulation and enunciation. We experiment with solfege and reading from the hand signs. We experiment a little bit with singing in harmony. I'll do a warm-up where I'll have the students following my solfege hand signs, and then I'll say, if you're on this side of the room, follow this hand, and if you're on this side of the room, follow this hand. And then I'll have them kind of go like that and sing different pitches. And they experiment with singing in harmony. Obviously, I do it a lot slower than that. And then if we're doing a song that's in a round, I'll incorporate some sort of warm-up that's in a round for that day. But I try to keep it concise because we only have an hour for our rehearsal. And so I want to make sure that we have enough time for attendance and warm-up and all the things we have to do. I would also say, especially for after-school ensembles, that time management is important in respect to the parents, because the way I dismiss is that the parents are already in carpool starting right at 3:30 when we dismiss, and I want to make sure that I'm not making them wait too long because a lot of times kids have swim lessons or tennis lessons or some other thing going on after school. So I want to make sure that I'm respecting their time. So that leads me to our last topic in this segment, which is pickups. So I have them lining up outside the door ready to go at 3:30. My students come out. I have them lining up on the sidewalk. And the big problem here, which is often an issue at many schools, is the students who don't get picked up on time. So we have a policy at my school where if you are picked up late 3 times, it's a strike against 3 strikes and you're out. Just as I try to respect the parents' time, I hope that they respect my time and don't have me waiting around after school for an hour while they are on their way to pick up their students. I know that life happens. I myself have run late picking up my own daughter in the past, so that's why I do it 3 strikes. Usually it's a one-time offense, and something has happened that day for the parents, and I get that. But if it's a consistent issue, that's a conversation I begin to have with the parents about how that student may not be able to continue to be in the ensemble anymore. We use the school phone to call parents. I found that to be the most effective way to get in touch with the parents, because if I use my own cell phone number, then they probably won't pick up. I don't know about you, but I usually don't pick up from an unknown number. But if they see the school number, parents are probably going to pick up. One thing I have learned at my school is that my school's phone system turns off at a certain time so that the phone isn't ringing all night long. So if that is happening at your school, you might want to find out about that. If you are leaving a message with the parent and saying, call me back at the school, make sure that your phone lines actually are running and available, and have a backup plan if they're not. So this has been managing rehearsals. There's probably a lot more we could have covered. And if you still have any questions, please leave them in the comments and we can have a further discussion about them. And like I always say, if you have any other ideas about how you manage your rehearsals, please leave those as well, because I'm continuing to learn just like you are.